Hi everyone, welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel. This is episode 156. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate everybody already chit-chatting away in the live chat. You guys are already up and running. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'm just getting my show notes organized. Mike and I made a couple of changes this morning to our setup. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was running appropriately and that we were having no problems. So thank you so much for being here. It is the end of June. I think, is it technically the first day of summer today, I think? I think it is. And it is Father's Day here in Canada. So happy Father's Day to all of the dads out there. Yes, short hair. What is it? Short hair, don't care. I did get a haircut. I donated 15 inches of hair, which is pretty awesome. So I said to my hairdresser on Thursday night, I was like, is it time? Is it long enough? And she said, yes, I think so. So she measured it because we were going for 12 inches, between 10 and 12 inches. And she's like, oh my goodness, your hair is 15 inches. So we took 15 off the back and we took 12 and a half, almost 13 off the front. So yeah. Yeah, thank you for your kind comments. So it is actually cloudy here. We had really heavy rain yesterday. And during the queries and explorations group session yesterday morning, it was absolutely pouring. And I kept meaning to ask them if they could hear the rain outside, but I never got a chance to ask. So yeah, Eve, I've seen you every day this weekend, which is so fantastic. Thank you everyone for being here. We've got Karma and Jennifer and Eva and Kelly and Becca and Jean and of course Eve and Alicia, Alberto, Mary. It's so good to see everybody. Hi Glenda, Lisa, Erica, Sabella. Thank you so much everybody for being here. We've got just a full chat today, so thank you so much. I hope everybody's doing really super well. I hope that you guys are, navigating sort of opening up for those who are opening up, and for those who are sort of just starting their sheltering in place. I hope that it's going okay and that you're sort of coping okay. It was really interesting. There was a comment on CBC Radio the other day. So CBC is our Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and it's kind of like NPR in the States, kind of. And they said that this is kind of like a big sneeze. And so you can see it rippling out across the world. So it's like, these areas have sort of already been through it. And then there's the next area and the next area. And I thought it was kind of an interesting comment, this sort of idea of like this big sort of sneeze effect that sort of has affected everybody. Very interesting. So in today's show, we have, I've got an announcement for Breed and Color Studies, which is really exciting. I have a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the intro credits. And I've got a little bit of community participation to talk to you about because we've got a lot going on in the Ravelry group and in the community. So I really wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on. And I've got a couple of projects to share with you from people that are very active in the community. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I'm working on and some spins in progress. So we'll spend the rest of the show working on that stuff. And I have a matcha tea latte again. I'm trying to wean myself off of all the coffee. I was getting really bad for drinking a lot of coffee. And I was saying to you guys last weekend about the bear and, having this experience with my best friend. And it was really funny because I was reflecting on it later. And I was sort of like, that adrenaline rush that you get when you're sort of in a situation like that. I was reflecting on it throughout the week because I was like, how do I minimize that feeling all the time? And so I was sort of like, I wonder if cutting out some of the coffee, I drink a lot of decaf coffee, but I do drink sort of 50-50 regular and non-regular, like regular coffee and decaf. And I just thought, maybe if I just kind of ease back a bit on the coffee and just sort of see, and I've actually felt a little bit better, which is kind of funny. I've done it before where I've been completely caffeine free. And of course, matcha has caffeine in it, but it's just gentler. It's like a calm alertness versus coffee that like gives you that like wired kind of. So I'll report back. I'll let you know how it goes. So the couple of things that I wanted to announce before we get into the opening credits was we've got our ongoing yarn substitution content. I actually finished yesterday doing all of the filming for the July content, and let me tell you, it's going to be long. And so we've sort of been looking at how to measure our yarns for those who haven't done it yet and are sort of just learning, because I know for some it's review, but for a lot of people it was new. And then in June, we've been looking at how do we use those yarns that are in our hand spun stash that we want to put into a sweater. How do we substitute? And in July, we're going to be looking at how to actually spin to replace a yarn and looking at commercial yarns and deconstructing them. And that's actually going to be a separate video. So there will be 2 videos in July. And then in August, we'll do sort of a summary download, which is really exciting. So we also, and then of course we've got a questions and queries group that met yesterday. We're meeting again next Sunday after the live stream. So we won't be meeting on Saturday next weekend. We're going to be meeting on Sunday. So we're going to do the live stream, do the thing, and then I will go and have some breakfast and I will come back fresh for you guys and we'll do our queries and explorations. And next week we are going to be looking at, yesterday we were looking at tweaking some of our spinning, looking at our drafts, spinning, how we hold our fiber. And next week, we're going to be actually looking at how do we put an exact amount of twist into a specific length of singles, which is really exciting. Our virtual spin group meets on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. And thank you to those who have participated. And I'll be seeing you guys again on Tuesday, which is really exciting. I've really been enjoying that group, and it's been really great to have you guys have that weekly check-in with the community. So thank you so much. We've got the woolen spinning newsletter that you can sign up for on wellforpearls.com. I've been really bad the last couple months about writing a newsletter and sending one out. 2 reasons. First of all, I feel like everybody's being inundated with information right now because of sort of being at home and collecting a lot of information. So if people are interested in what's going on in the community, they're probably perusing Patreon. They're looking at the podcast here on YouTube. They're participating in the live stream. If you guys have any questions about what's going on, just send me a note. And if you're having trouble navigating something, let me know. On the Patreon landing page, I have put for patrons. So when you sign into Patreon and you look at your posts, when you go to your posts, at the very top is a pinned post. There's 2 that are pinned. One is for the live chat assistance for those who are new and not sure how to get into the live chat. And the second one has 2 links in it. It is pinned at the top, so you don't have to remember where it is. It's at the top of your Patreon post stream when you sign in for Well for Pearls for woolen spinning. It has a link to the index and it has a link to the calendar so that you guys know when stuff is happening. Okay, so the calendar also generates a auto notification in Slack now, but those 2 links are posted in Patreon at the very top on your posts. So when you see all of the latest posts underneath, those are all still there, but pinned at the top are those 2 links for you to access all the content and to access the calendar. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. All right, breed and color studies. So Katrina has been dying up a storm, and Carlene, her sister, has been carding up a storm, because with breed and color studies, we do this twice a year as a community, and they last for about 6 months. But as you guys know, we shifted it forward to be from July to December and then January to June. So our January to June, the first half of the year, we spend looking at comb top, and then the second half of the year, we spend looking at carded. So we're going to be looking at a very, very cool set of colors this time round. And there will be information coming out on Woolen Spinning Radio on July 1st. So that will be an episode released to everybody in the Patreon community. Make sure you have a listen and mark July 15th on your calendar. I don't have times yet, but we will be, fiber will go on sale on July 15th. So that's really exciting. And we'll be letting you know what the colors are and what the breed is that we're going to be looking at for the next 6 months in that woolen spinning episode. In our in the Slack channel is our book club. So if you guys would like to participate, we're looking at Pride and Prejudice right now. I wanted to join on Friday. Becca had sent me the link, and I was so excited to be able to participate because we didn't have any plans. And then we got home from tutoring for James, and I looked at the clock and it was already 1:30. fail. So that was really too bad. I'm really sorry that I missed it. We're also looking at How to Be an Antiracist by Ibram Kendi. This is as part of our anti-racism work in the group, and you can access that and become a part of that in the hashtag books channel in the Slack channel for anybody who's part of the Patreon community. And this will be, we're sort of discussing dates when we want to come together and what that's going to look like. We're going to get together monthly for that one. They're going to be finishing Pride and Prejudice on Friday, July 3rd. So that's great. Thanks, Becca. I really appreciate you letting me know. Yeah, I'm excited for Breed and Color this time around. I think it's going to be really fun. It's a sort of a different one for us, and I'm looking forward to it. So with our Made with Love Along, our Made with Love Along is an opportunity to do what we do best and get creative. This is a time to make and lift up others. So our friend Rebecca at Rebby J wrote a great blog post about this. And if you want to learn more about this event, you can head over to that, and it's linked in the show notes down below. The Patreon post with the show notes is linked in the YouTube notes down below. And if you look at the timestamp along the bottom, you can scroll along right here and go to where you want to in the show once this is released later, because I'll put timestamps on for everybody. So Becca finished a gorgeous skein of yarn. This is from her post so we're working with Crafty Jaks Fiber, Kelly G Knits patterns, and we're also lifting up anybody who's sort of local to us that we want to lift up and honor. So last week I finished the first spin of a Crafty Jaks Fiber I ordered in the spring, decided to go for a very basic comforting spin. I think that's what we all need right now, Becca. It's the Into the Deep colorway on Targi. Isn't that beautiful? She spun her standard 3-ply. She stripped the braid into 16. So 16 long strips end to end. And she ended up with a light DK weight yarn. No plans for a project yet. It's just beautifully spun. I was actually wondering, Becca, because you didn't say, did you spin this on your flat iron or did you do this on your spindles? So Becca, who's at Bethy40 on Ravelry and in the Slack channel, she is mostly a spindle spinner, and she did acquire a wheel a couple of years ago now, I guess. But she actually is her 80% of her work is spindles. So yeah, it's a beautiful colorway. For those who are signed up for my Fibers West class, which got canceled and moved to next year for 2021, this was actually one of the colorways that we were going to be looking at in that class. So it's really cool. Beautiful, beautiful spinning. Yeah, she spun it on the flat iron. Beautiful. So our 51 Yarns Spin Along is another community-wide sort of thing that we do. And it is, and after we finish community participation, I'll run the intro credits. We've been looking at the 51 Yarns book, 51 Yarns to Spin Before You Cast Off by J.C. Boggs Faulkner. We've been looking at this for the last year and a half. We have another 5 months to go, which is amazing that we're almost done. I guess it's actually 6 months because it's July to December, and then Group A will be done, and Group B has another year to go. So Group A, Megan shared this amazing yarn. We've been looking at in June. The chapter is called Be Kind, Rewind. And so we're looking at rewinding our singles to the first spun end. So we've talked about that a lot on the podcast, the reasons for doing it, why it's a great chance to even out the twist, rearrange your bobbins so that the yarn is arranged evenly across the weaving bobbin or the storage bobbin, whatever you choose to use. And then when you're also at the first spun end, so you can make an even smoother yarn. These yarns tend to not have quite as much halo. If you've gone to all that effort of spinning short forward and smoothing as you spin, it's nice to be able to preserve that really nicely worsted spun fiber. So Megan says, and this is at Likey Meg, fiber was Crafty Jaks BFL Silk in Lava Love, which I think is Kelly's favorite colorway, if I'm right. She used her flat iron as well at 17:1, and the structure was a 2-ply worsted spun long forward. So she drafted about 2.5 inches per draft forward. I'm kind of not surprised because the BFL silk can be quite long, and Katrina sources a really beautiful BFL silk, and it is quite long stapled. She rewound onto bobbins and then she plied. So her reflections are that well, you read my theory of spinning the last post. I'm generally not a rewind person, but that is because I generally prefer to spin woolen prepped wools like Shetland that lend themselves to loft and air without aligning the fibers. So I don't rewind my woolen yarns either. I only rewind when it's worsted spun. When I spin these long draw woolen low twist, which is my default for color work, which is my default knitting, I have never found much difference when I rewind them. And actually, I'm sure for most people, they would find that it would break as they rewound if it's really quite low twist in one area and the twist goes to even out and they just kind of drift apart. I have found a difference when I rewind long wools and long shiny fibers like silk. Thus, this skein was rewound. I do think it makes the yarn shinier and smoother in those particular situations. This yarn and fiber is beautiful. However, I very consistently find that I never put enough twist in my silk blends. Interesting. So beautiful spin, Megan. I guess Megan means when she says that she never puts enough twist in, maybe she wanted a little bit firmer of a twist angle. Beautiful yarn though. This yarn with this sort of slightly gentler twist angle would make a beautiful shawl because those yarn overs would just absolutely bloom. They would just open right up from that low twist and that 2-ply, that sort of oval nature to our 2-ply yarns. When you look at a 2-ply next to a 3-ply, the 2-ply always looks a little bit oval and the 3-ply looks rounder. And and it's that twist sort of fighting against itself, and in the yarn overs, those 2-plies just open right up. And I'll show you that later in a project that I am working on. Oh, that's great, Kelly. So she's committed to spending some time catching up on 51 yarns when she's finished her sweater for Tour de Fleece. Tour de Fleece actually starts next weekend. And if you're interested in participating in on Team Woolen Spinning, there's a Patreon post. This is open to everybody. You do not have to be a patron to join our team. There's a thread in the Ravelry group, Woolen Spinning, for everybody to participate. So please don't hesitate if you're new to the group and you want something to kind of, tiptoe your way into the waters of what we do here and introduce yourself to the community. Tour de Fleece might be a great way to do that. And I'll link it down below in the show notes for you so you can access that thread and just pop in and say you want to be a part of the team and start spinning with us when we start next weekend. So group B has been looking at semi yarns. So we're talking here semi-woolen, semi-worsted. This is from Nicole. And this she shares about her semi-worsted spin from commercial comb top spun backwards draw with some smoothing. So she had 200 grams of merino silk and she ended up with approximately 1,000 yards of light fingering weight, about 20 wraps per inch, 2-ply. Beautiful, Nicole. I split each bump in two and plied half from each other, and she's super happy with how it turned out. So she kind of mixed them up to get them to be really nicely coordinated. So really, really beautiful. Thank you everybody for participating and for sharing. I appreciate it because these are just gorgeous spins. So, and you guys are doing such a beautiful job. All right, let's run the opening credits and I'll meet you back here in just a moment. All right, so I have lots to share with you today, and I wanted to start off with some of my knitting projects. So I have been working on my Odyssey shawl by Joji Locatelli, and I'm actually kind of torn about what to do with this. And I was sort of thinking, welcome Wendy, I know you're late. I was actually sort of thinking that I might actually gift this. I'm not totally sure what to do. I'm just going to skein up some yarn because it's sitting here and it's kind of bugging me, and we're going to talk about it in a few minutes. So I'm really, really happy with how it's turning out. And as you guys know, my sister-in-law, her mom died unexpectedly during all of this, all of the COVID stuff. And unfortunately, this has happened to many people. I've witnessed it myself in the hospital, being a critical care nurse and working in ICU. We've had several patients where this has happened. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law's mom was one of the most outgoing people that I've ever met in my entire life. You know how there's like those people that you meet once in a blue moon and they are so extroverted. And Rosemary was one of those people. She knew everybody. She had a pulse on what was going on all over. Like, and I'm not talking about like all over in her little neighborhood. I'm talking about like all over the world. She had friends everywhere. She's from England and kept in close touch with all of her family back there. She had family in the States. She kept in touch with all of them. She had tons of friends, huge family. Anyways, very, very, very extroverted. And one of the things that kept coming up at her virtual funeral last weekend, because my sister-in-law really wanted to do a virtual funeral for her and to honor her, and which ended up just turning out beautifully. And one of the things that she that kept coming up again and again and again was that Rosemary was just such a good storyteller. And again, it kept coming up again and again and again, how extroverted she was. So what was so heartbreaking about the whole situation was she ended up dying alone. And that was like the one thing that she didn't want. So, which goes with her personality. It's how she lived her life. She was never alone. So my sister-in-law's obviously had a really hard time with that. There's a lot of guilt with that. A lot of like hurt and anger and pain. And then on top of that, you're grieving. And on top of that, you've got the COVID. So, I wanted to do something to kind of, just say, hey, this sucks. So I have been knitting away on my Odyssey shawl, like I just mentioned. And the colors that I've been using, it's my Gotland Romney that I spun a while ago. And I was going to use this for my Gentle Morning, which is the sweater right here in the background. But I ended up pivoting because it was too dense of a yarn and too heavy of a yarn to basically to knit the sweater. Like, it was really hurting my wrist, and there's no way I could have gotten through the body of that sweater with all the purling, because you're knitting one way but then you're purling back, and it just was really hurting my wrist. And even all the garter stitch in this shawl, it's still hurting my wrist. So I dyed the yarn. It was white originally, and I dyed the yarn with some Kibraka and some cochineal. So it's sort of layered, and I followed the recipe in the Modern Natural Dyer. And so I started off with my weight of fiber and my intensity, so that I got the really dark color. And then I added a bit of cochineal because it wasn't quite as dark as I wanted it. And then I got the medium and then the light. And these two ended up being a little bit closer than I had hoped. I wanted them to be a little bit different, but I decided to cast on anyhow and to just sort of, carry on. And I'm glad I did, because it's working out really nicely. So this is what I've got left from the first color, and this is what I've got left from the second color. And I was sort of like, I want to use up as much of the yarn as I can. I don't want any left over, blah, blah, blah. But the yarn and the colors are so lovely that I think I might actually, with whatever's left over, I think I might actually do up like a really simple pair of fingerless mitts for myself to kind of keep it. So I'm on to the third color. Yeah, it's so true, Becca. So many hard things. And I started knitting. And the reason why I'm not putting this on the other camera is because it's so big. I want to show you guys up on the big camera. So let me just minimize the webcam for just a sec. And then you guys can really see this thing. So how gorgeous is this? So we were talking about yarn overs and 2-ply yarns. This is a 3-ply. And this is a free pattern, so I feel like I can talk very openly about the pattern because it is free. So you can go and download it and make your own. I would highly recommend it. It's a great pattern. Typical Hohi Locatelli, just a really good quality pattern, even though it's free. You have to make these holes. So you come to the first row for your lace and it says make hole, which I always appreciate. Stephen West has patterns like that too, that have the make hole, MH, if you don't know the simplification. So this is just the one side. It's a crescent shaped shawl, and I just want to hold it up for you guys so you can really see. And of course, lace doesn't look great when it's not blocked. Let's be honest, it's not what it will be when it's blocked. But you can still see the gradient, and you can see how the lighter color at the bottom is quite a bit lighter. And you can see how once it's blocked, it's going to really lay out beautifully. So that's the stitch pattern there. But you can see how big it is, and my stitch gauge and I'll talk about that in just a sec. But look at these gorgeous big holes, and when you wash it, they're going to open up even more. So I'm really enjoying how this is working up. It's been really fun. I kind of want to make another one. It's just been such a great mindless knit, and we're gonna actually go on a hike this afternoon. So after the live stream is done, we're gonna go up to a local hike to us about half an hour away, and I'm gonna work on this in the car on the drive up, because it's quite mindless. And even once you get to the lace, it's over a repeat of about 14 stitches, I think. So what I did, because it's a free pattern and because this yarn on the 4mm needles was really hurting my hands, and I knew that I had a limited amount of yarn to work with, what I did was I took the pattern and I cast on with 6mm needles. And then I worked until I sort of felt like I was getting near a good amount left of the dark color. So that's the first one that's up by the neck. So when I got to sort of here, I counted my stitches, figured out kind of over 14 inches 14 stitches, because that's the lace repeat, how many times I would be able to repeat the pattern across. And I did a couple more rows of increases so that I would have the right number other than the edge stitches, right? Because you don't want to take those into account. And then I worked the pattern over the number of stitches that I had. And then I continued and I did the same thing for the medium, and I'll do the same thing for the light color. So my shawl, the stitch numbers are less. I think in the pattern you need like 140 stitches for the first color to work the first set of increases, or the first lace repeat. And I think I had like 70. So, but because I'm working on 6mm needles and I've got sort of an Aran, and I'm sort of knitting up the yarn as if it's an Aran weight, because it'll bloom in the washing, it's kind of working. So, well, it is working, and it'll be a nice size. Like you can see how it's bunched up on the needles here, but this is going to be a fair size shawl. So, and Katie has a camel colored jacket that she wears. She's blonde, blue eyed, and so she's got a camel colored jacket. She also has a brown rain jacket. So it's the same as I have a gray, the same one, but in gray. And she wears a lot of like rust colors and blues and teals. And she's kind of getting into pinks. So the more I knit on this, the more I was like, I think I might give this to Katie. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, it's turning out really nicely. So hopefully that'll be done in the next few weeks. And I'll share some more reflections on sort of modifying the stitch pattern. Oh, that's so funny, Eva. So she actually did that. She saw me knitting the shawl and knitted in 3 days. She just loves it. That's awesome, Eva. Well done. Yeah, it's not my friend. It's my sister-in-law. So it's actually family. So that's why it was like so near and dear to my heart, was watching my brother go through the loss of my dad in the summer, and then back to back having this happen to our family has been, you're just sort of aware of these things. Like, how can we lift each other up, So yeah, thank you, you guys. Thanks, Eve. I think she will. I think so. I think she's, yeah, she has quite a few of my hand knit shawls that I don't wear anymore, and a couple of them are my hand spun, and I'm always like, she's always like, do you want them back? Do you want them back? And they all have hand knit toques and all the things from me. So they're a very knit worthy family. They really get it. She's the one that I made the hourglass toque for back in when we did our tweed study for 51 yarns. She's the one that I made that for. It was for her birthday, and I gave it to her in the hospital with her mom. So, bittersweet, right? So this is my Vellicor. That was actually the last time I saw Rosemary. Was on the Tuesday night that I picked up Rebecca from the airport. And it was my brother's birthday. So I probably will never forget that day. So this is my Vellicor by Andrea and Mowry. I am not trucking along on it at all. I was going to say that this was actually going really fast because people have said on Ravelry how quickly theirs is going. Mine is not going fast at all. I probably got about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches done. I think last show I was down here and now I'm up here. I'm finding this quite slow. I'm not enjoying it any less. I'm actually quite enjoying it. It's a nice mindless knit. You don't need to tote around the pattern because you're just working straight row after row. I find garter stitch really slow. I find it doesn't build up very quickly. So I guess there is that. Like it would be nice if it would build a bit faster, but that's just not the way. But you can see, what I'm happy with is that you can see the fractal, the movement of the fractal. So the contrast color that's in the fractal there is my hand spun. So that's Pasuta, and it was a 3-ply fractal yarn that I spun for the Ashford article in the Wheeler that'll come out later this year. And you can see in the skein the movement of the fractally spun stripes. And so I was looking for a pattern that would highlight that movement of the fractal. So I had thought about doing either a bottom up or a top down kind of yoked, seamless yoke pattern, the one that Elizabeth Zimmerman gives the recipe for in her Knitting Without Tears. And I was going to use it with the Ocean, which is Tough and Tender. It's the sock yarn base from Katrina. So these are both Targi. This one is Targi nylon and this one is Targi bamboo silk. And I was going to do like a 2x2 striping. And I've worn that cardigan on the podcast before, but I've made it before. And I did it when I first learned about the recipe in 2010, about that. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. It was with Sauberball in the gray with the red. Anyways, so I was going to do that again. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I really kind of want to knit something different. So I cast on the smallest size because you're supposed to wear this with up to 10 inches of positive ease. So this will theoretically give me 6 inches of positive ease. And at first I was like, oh, this is going to be like really, really, really oversized because my stitch gauge is off by about 2 stitches. So over 4 inches, my stitch gauge is over by 2 stitches. So I can't remember what it's called for in the pattern, but I have 27 stitches and the pattern has 29. I think it's something like that, over 4 inches. So I was going to rip it out because I rip out everything. You guys know that. But then I decided to just sort of go with it because it will make a 40, it'll be 40 inches around in circumference. And I sort of thought, by the time you get underwear and a tank top or a shirt or a dress or a long shirt underneath or like something, it's nice to have that ease. And that sort of space and that movement and that you're not constantly pulling at something because you've got that nice amount of ease. And it's a boxy kind of a shape and there's no sleeves. So I thought it might be kind of nice for the summer, or not when it's really hot, but like in the evenings in the fall, you just throw it on when you don't really want sleeves on. And, you just kind of have this like comfortable, slightly oversized kind of shift idea. Does that make sense? So that's what I'm thinking. That is what I came to. I'm just going to keep on going. Can't stop this train. So I'm knitting this on 3.25 millimeter needles, which is a US size 3. And I'm doing this on my Chow Goose. And I'm finding actually that the pointiness is really helping because when you're knitting this fine and you've got the right twist that you're working every 4th row, I think it is, something like that. It's nice to have that really pointy needle to knit into those stitches. So definitely think about picking up some pointy needles if you're going to knit this pattern. They have made a big difference for me. Oh. Yeah, it's the drape. And so what I was concerned about, Eve, that's a great point, is that because this is quite dense fabric, it's almost like it's double knitted because it's a mosaic pattern. I was worried that didn't have any drape, because it doesn't. So that was why I was sort of getting a bit concerned, because I was sort of like, oh, maybe I should pick a different pattern, knit something a bit more open. Maybe I should have modified my gauge and gone up a needle size and cast on fewer stitches. But for now, I'm going to knit a little bit further and put it on my dress form and see, because my Gentle Morning behind me here ended up having quite a bit of positive ease in it. After all, I would have made it a little bit longer if I had a little bit more yarn, but in the end, it actually worked out really, really well. And so I'm kind of willing to trust the process right now. So the only other project that I have going is I finally finished the first skein of yarn for my Bee. It's Bee Fabulicious. This is my Ankers cardigan. This is a pattern by PetiteKnits, and this is for my Made with Love Along. So I made the stone crop, which is also kind of for the Made with Love Along, and I'm also doing the Vellicor, and I've also got this going. So I feel like I've got a lot of Made with Love Along, but I have a lot of love for Katrina. So there you go. And I just finished the first skein. So that took me all the way down the body. I think this is about 10 inches of body. It's actually longer than I thought it was, because I was getting really bogged down with the body. Because I want to make the body a little bit longer if I have the yardage to be able to do it, because of just being so long torsoed. I would like to make the body 15.5 inches. I think in the pattern it's like 11 or 12 inches. Let me see how long I'm at now, because actually this is quite a bit longer than I thought it was. Maybe I kind of finally went on a bit of autopilot and actually made some progress, because I was trying to knit to the end. Yeah, so 11 inches. So I'm at 11. So I only have until, I've only got another 1, 2, 3, so about 4 inches left of knitting on the body, plus an inch of ribbing, 1 by 1 ribbing. So I'm getting there. And then I have the sleeves. So my original plan was to knit the sleeves and then go back and knit the body. But I think what I might do is actually just finish the body and then work on the sleeves. So I need to wind up the second ball and get that done. And then I can get, I would like to wear this. It would look great with what I'm wearing right now. Like, I can't pull on it too much, because I've got the sleeves, the needles are halfway along, but like, that's super cute. So, and I bought this dress in Toronto back in 2006, and I've like barely worn it. So yeah, it would be nice to have something to wear with it that would be kind of like an outfit. Oh my goodness, Kelly, that's crazy. I'm working on a sweater right now that recommended 12 inches, and I added another 6 to my length. So you're in the same boat as me. I know some of them are so short, and I know the cropped thing is really popular right now, but for me, if I only knit a sweater that's 10 inches deep, it will be like my Felix, and it'll hit my waist. So it'll hit me here if I knit only 10 inches long. So for me, like, I need that extra length. Like, I need if it's 13 inches long in the body, like I need at least another 3 inches. So, and then like with my Gentle Morning, I knit it to 17 inches. I kind of wish I'd knit it to 18 or 19 inches, but it's good the way it is. Like, I have no complaints. It would just be nice if it was a little bit longer at the back, but I think with wear, it'll kind of relax too, because that sort of seems to be what wool does. Is that the Oak 50 I'm going to have leftovers? Oh, thank you, Tessa. It is the Oak 50, because I think you had ordered the other 2 skeins. There were 4, and I got 2, and you got 2. Thank you, Tessa. That's very lovely. What are you knitting with yours? I'm curious. Curious minds want to know. James added a whole bunch of ice to my water this morning. He's like, Mama, do you want some ice in your water? I was like, oh, thank you, James. That's really sweet. And then he put like 10 pieces in. So now it's like dripping everywhere because of the condensation. But with my mouth, I find I really need a lot of fluids when I'm talking this much. So I appreciate you guys allowing me to sort of stop and drink, just take sips every so often. Okay, I'm going to switch the cameras around, and I need your patience for just a moment because I am going to add one more camera. And then we will get up and running. So let me just get it started here. Okay, I just need to... I'm going to just stand up. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so there we go. Let's try again. So I'm going to turn so that I can see everybody and move the mic slightly. Hopefully it doesn't bang too much. And I hope that we have enough battery in the DSLR. And if we don't, I will, adjust. So this is my Woolpool by Spunky Eclectic. So I'm just looking at what I did with this. So this was the April Fiber Club. And it is, I'm spinning it on my Lendrum, and I'm doing it at 17:1. And the interesting thing about this spin has been that, you know, I was spinning it last weekend in the, oh, hang on, webcam. I was spinning it last weekend in the cul-de-sac, and I was sort of working with it and really quite enjoying it. And I realized how low twist I was spinning it, and I was like, uh-oh, I'm gonna have some problems here because it's so low twist and so sort of coming up very like woolen. And so I decided I'm probably gonna have to rewind the singles because they're just a little bit too, it's just a little bit too soft spun, you know. So what I thought I would do, so this is the Chasing Rainbows. If I go too close, it's this doesn't have automatic, but this is the my bobbin, and you can see the colors are just, I mean, they're just incredible. But you can see how, like, if I unwind a little bit of it, you guys will laugh. Now I have to find the end of the bobbin. You can see how soft spun it is. Like, yes, they've been resting, but it's really soft spun. It's just, there's not a lot of twist in there. Let's see if I can zoom in for you. So I don't know if I'm gonna have to put it back through and just tighten it up a little bit, but this is Woolpool, and Amy said in the notes that basically Woolpool is a blend that we get from a mill that takes the farmer's wool and blends it all together. Some years it's softer than others, and this is one of those years. It's so much like Corriedale. This wool is one of my all-time favorites. It's hard wearing and soft, though like Corriedale, some might not find it next to the skin soft. Spin it like Corriedale, it's an average easy spin for most. So I'm definitely finding that. It's really fast to spin. And I've been taking the top and going to the middle because I don't like to split from the ends. I've just been going to the middle, and I've just been finding those like natural breaks and stripping it from there. And just stripping it down. So I've got 3 here ready to go. I think I ended up stripping it 6 times in total. And you see how when you're stripping, it gets all like twisted? I just lift it up, get that extra twist out of there. And then I can keep stripping so that you keep it nice and clean. Because otherwise your fiber, when you're stripping, it gets all like messed up and fuzzy, and you start to really wreck it. And with something like this, like I want it to strip nicely. So I think what I had done was I stripped it like that, and then I stripped it again. So I think I had 9, I'd stripped it 9 times for the first half of the braid. So that, is sort of what I am going to do, with this other half. And I'm hoping I spun this very quickly, like in just a couple of hours, sitting out in the cul-de-sac visiting with everybody last weekend on my birthday. And I'm really hoping that I can finish this up this week and get it plied, because what a fun spin, and such bright, beautiful colors. So it's been really neat to spin. Yeah. Those colors still pop. Yeah, they really do. Even when they're spun up, they still pop. You're right, Dorothy. So I just need to be cognizant of how much twist I'm putting in. And then I'll have to make sure that both bobbins are the same. I didn't do, this was just a mindless spin. I didn't worry about like counting my treadles or counting my twist or anything like that. I was just sitting out there spinning away on my default. So sometimes that means that my yarns end up a bit under twisted. So I just have to be aware. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions about that. Yeah, I think they'll be really, really, really pretty plied up. I don't have a plan for it, Becca. I think that because the colors are so cheery and so fun, I just kind of thought, you know, I'm just going to kind of let them be what they want to be. So this is my combo spin, my Falkland. So it ended up turning out, I had to reply one of the skeins. And you know what is so neat? I don't actually know which one was the one that I replied. I think it was this one. But the nice thing is now with that extra ply twist, they actually ended up being all the same. It just was underplied. So this ended up being a 2-ply. I had a photo of the third braid that I used for this spin, and it got wiped off the camera, which is really too bad, because it would have been nice to see that third braid and how the 3 braids worked up together. But it has some brown. It's the one that has some of this brown that you can see in the finished skein. And you can see all the barber poling and how the 3 colors really marled together. And I just really love this yarn. I love how it turned out. I love that it's kind of more brown than it is purple. Because it is purple, but it's not quite so, but it's got some nice depth and texture to it. And of course it's got these light areas where the 3 Waters Farm color comes through. So, yeah. Eve is doing her quote-unquote homework from the Q&A session, and she said counting treadles is like patting her head and rubbing her tummy. So I'm really happy now that this is dry, because I showed it to you last week, but it was still wet. So I'll just lay it out and you guys can see it sort of out of the skeins, because sometimes it's hard to see the colors. And this came out as a DK. I think it came out at 11 wraps per inch, if my memory serves. I didn't write it down yet. I'll just use my spinner's control card just to check. But I think it came out at 11 wraps per inch when you take an average. 12, 14, 14. Yeah, so about 12 wraps per inch. So yeah, sort of a heavy sport, light DK. So I think that'll work really nicely in something. And I don't know what my yardage is. I haven't checked yet. So very, very, very happy with how that turned out. And it's nice and bouncy and springy, and it's still soft. That one braid was quite compacted, and it was hard to spin, and it really made the spin onerous, and it felt like a lot of work. I'm glad that I stuck with it and that I saw it through, but it's really too bad that it was so, like, it was very compacted. It was the dyeing. It was unlabeled. I got it years ago, so that was really too bad. So the next one that I wanted to share with you guys was my South African. So this spin I've been working on for not a year. I started it in like October. This was a batt that Katrina gave me after my dad died, and she actually gave me one of Eric's Turkish spindles with it. And it just had a ton of like sari silk in it and fire star and just lots of texture, and it was of course in my favorite color with the yellow. And I just love how this yarn turned out. So the finished skein is here. And I don't know what my yardage is. I applied this on my steampunk, my Schneider steampunk, which is like a gear at the top, which I really, really love for plying. It's really fast and it runs really fast. You can run it down your leg and it just, it just goes. So for plying, that worked out really, really well. And I have a really nice twist angle. And one of the things that I always find with my spindle spun yarns is how much lighter they are. They're so light and they are so airy, and they sometimes are a bit thicker, but they just come out so lovely. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. For how I replied, did I unwind? No. So what I did was I took the skein, I wound it into a center pull ball. So the skein was, just like this, and it was plied. And I had washed it and finished it, and I really wasn't happy with the twist angle. I wasn't happy with, it was underplied. So what I did was I took it and I wound it into a center pull ball, and I took the center out of the ball and I just threw it back through the wheel. So I still ran it in the S twist direction and replied it and tightened it up. And I just tightened it right up to what I had done with the other two, and then re-skeined it, re-washed it, and Bob's your uncle. Why do spindle spun yarns? So Becca and I have had some great conversations about this. And I've had these same conversations with my friend Diana Twist, who's quite the spindle spinner. She's just makes the most beautiful yarns on her spindles. When you have a suspended spindle pulling on your yarn and pulling it down, I think what happens is it attenuates the fiber and pulls them. So as you're spinning and the spindle is dropping down, I think what's happening is that weight on the singles is creating sort of this drag and this pull as you're making more and more singles. And what ends up happening is when you go to ply and then wash is those fibers sprawling back to life in the wool, because remember, wool is elastic. And so I find with my spindle spun yarns, because in that finishing process I lose yardage because they crimp back up and they are elastic, but they're lighter and loftier and airier. So they tend to be a little bit the gauge tends to be a little bit more like if I was going for fingering, they kind of end up being a sport weight, which is kind of my default, but they're lighter. And I think it's just the weight of the spindle. Now, the cool thing will be to figure out, Dorothy, whether or not that's the case on my support spindle spun yarns. I'm curious about that. So the next one that I wanted to share with you guys was my Muga. So the Muga I've been working on as part of a project with a friend of mine. And this was my control card. And I have my plyback test here, and I've got the singles here, and I've just been working on it on my Magicraft. And this yarn, the sheen on this yarn is just unbelievable. And this is from Sanjo Silk, which is local to me. And I'll just show it to you here because, look at that sheen. So you can see next to the South African, the difference. This is matte. There's no sheen. The Sari Silk and the Firestar flash, but the Muga just under the lights here, it just has this unbelievable sheen. And of course, it's super, super, super light. This is like air. It's just, there's no weight to it whatsoever. I don't know what my yardage is. I need to go back and count it. But I was so happy with how this turned out. And this is an up close of my control card there. And then I've been working on some red Erie, and same thing, just the sheen on this stuff is just unbelievable. So let me see if I can get that under the camera there for you. Isn't that cool? Just beautiful, this red Erie. So this is from Sanjo Silk as well. And we were playing around with different drafting methods. And so Kim and I were looking at short continuous backward, which is where you're draft back, smooth, draft back, smooth, and then funnel on. And then we were looking at a different ratio and a different drafting length. And then we were looking at over the fold, which was really, really beautiful. It made 3 completely different yarns, completely different. And this red Erie is just, well, I mean, look at the color. It's just beautiful. So I have some white Erie to work with as well that I'm going to play with as well. Isn't that cool? Just some different fibers, just some like playing around with different stuff. It's just been really, really great. Now, this is from Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks. So this is Liz's fiber. And she sent me some roving to play with, which you guys know. And this stuff came up just beautifully. So I had to do this one first because it had a little bit of sparkle in it. And I just thought that it was just going to be so much fun to play with. And it was. So I spun this on my Lendrum. I think I spun it at, let me just check, 17:1 continuous backward draft. So that's where, you know, you draft back. This one I didn't smooth. So I let go, pinched, draft back, let go, pinch, draft back, let go, and then funnel it on. And I just, again, it was the same as this one. I just went on total autopilot with spindling, and I just sat and enjoyed it. It's just this little bit of fiber, less than an ounce. And I just had so much fun spinning it, and I washed it, and it just bloomed to life. And I think it's just a wool blend. It felt a lot like Corriedale. There was some darker bits in there, some darker fibers. And then with the dye over top, I mean, you can see in the photos how beautiful this fiber is. It just, oh, the colors. So I'm looking forward to getting into the rest of the bag, because my goal is to try to do 1 or 2 a week, because for samples for Liz, she just wants to see some of the rovings that are like, that actually spun up. So I'm happy to help her with that. And then the last thing that I've been working on is, and I'll switch over the webcam. The last thing that I've been working on is I finally finished the singles for my Yak Silk. So this is SweetGeorgia. I'll hold it a bit close to the camera. This is my Yak Silk blend, and I spun this over the fold. So I spun it on the Majacraft Susie at 28:1 with the lace kit. So you can see this bobbin is different from the regular Majacraft bobbins. And it's got the whirl at the back to for fine tuning your break. And one of the things about this that I like, I'm just gonna put this here so it doesn't roll off the table, is that with the fatter core, you can really get some good speed going, and there's not quite so much resistance as the yarn funnels on. I know, right? When do I sleep? The thing about this spin was that I think I could have this yarn could have handled more twist. So instead of rewinding this onto weaving bobbins, I think I might actually rewind this onto another bobbin and tighten it up a little bit. Because there are sections, I think, as I was spinning over the fold, that I think are a little bit under twisted. So I think I might tighten it up before I apply it. So I may or may not get to that this week. Sometimes when the kids are playing outside in the afternoon, I have an opportunity to work on stuff outside, because I can't really be in the house doing stuff and doing like housework and stuff, because the kids are outside on the front street and they're playing like up and down in the cul-de-sac and going down the street. So I need to be out there and watching. So a lot of this stuff I do while they're out there. It's how I got this done. I actually walked around the cul-de-sac while plying while the kids were playing, and I got like 1,000 steps or something, which was ridiculous. But it's just, you know, I kind of have to be eyes and ears out there, and a couple of the other moms are working as well, you know, because this is, you know, my small business stuff is like I have to take that into account as well. When I'm out there and doing work and checking emails and stuff. And so we all kind of try to trade each other off a little bit, and it works most of the time. Friday was a bit rocky. The kids were having a tough time getting along, which is too bad. So the Yak Silk is really, really beautiful. This was a really fun spin. I think it was about 1 ounce of fiber, and I'm actually really excited to see it next to these two, to the Muga and the Red Erie. And I actually have a control card that I've been working on just to compare, so this is the yak silk. Let me see if I can show this to you. It's kind of in the wrong hand. This is the yak silk, but also it's the camel silk that I was working on a couple of weeks ago. So at the top there is the cabled yarn that I did the little sample of, and then the second one down is a 2-ply, just the ply back test that I did. Isn't that beautiful, all that heathering? Oh, and then this is the yak silk ply back test. So you can see how it's not as high twist as I was wanting, but this particular section of the fiber seems to have a lot of yak in it, because I don't see a lot of, there's no sheen, not the same amount of sheen as on the singles, and it looks very yaky to me, a bit more matte, a little bit fuzzier, a little bit more halo, because they're very short fibers, the yak. So I kind of, have made this, and I've been kind of just chronicling it, because I'm not going to remake these yarns exactly the way that they were made. But it's fun to see them sort of in comparison to each other, and to kind of save these different cards, and to sort of see how, as I spin more and more silk, how my spinning changes, and how these different ways of spinning affect the finished product. So just small stuff. Like this wasn't a lot. It was only about an ounce. This was about 20, I think it's about 20 grams maybe. So about an ounce of spinning. The same with the Erie. So yeah, spindling while walking is my absolute favorite. It helps a lot with posture too. That's true, Becca. Actually, I found I was really like standing up straight. That's a really good point. Yeah, try it this week, Barb. Report back. So crafting, being a mom, and getting steps in, that's multitasking. I don't know if it's incredible, but sometimes I think it's like a bit crazy. Hence the no more coffee. And actually it's funny because this past week, I actually, because I wasn't sleeping very well when all the COVID stuff started because of work and just the stress of work, and just sort of feeling a bit concerned about what was going on. I didn't feel worried per se. It just was like, okay, like what's this going to look like? But I've started to sleep a lot better again. But with the rain and at night and listening to it, and it's been a little bit more overcast, not quite so hot. It's been really nice to have that quietness. So yeah. So I hope everybody's well. Let me know how you liked this camera thing, and how you liked having me sit at the table and talk to you versus being at the webcam, which is over here, and trying to kind of work off to the side. Let me know how that felt in terms of comfort, and how you guys felt watching it. If it felt more natural, if it felt like you were kind of interacting with me a little bit more. I really appreciate that, because it really helps me to know whether or not the additional setup is worthwhile, because this is 3 cameras worth of setup, and I totally don't mind doing it. It's actually a pleasure. But let me know if it's worth it, and if you guys, if it works, because I do appreciate the feedback. Oh, Kelly, I like it. I really like it, she says in capitals. That's fantastic, Kelly. Thank you. I feel like this is more intimate, if that makes sense. I have to tell you guys, this is always a work in progress, the podcast. Like everything about the podcast is a work in progress always. And I actually stole my kid's bedside table so that I could put the wood that I use on here. And it actually feels like a better height. So it does make me feel like I'm a little bit more relaxed and can kind of sit here and just chit chat. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, thanks you guys. Your setup is great. Cool. Thanks, Dorothy. Okay. There is a little focus square on your face. Oh, you know what, you guys? I didn't realize that because I could have turned that off. Darn. How's that? No more focus square. Thanks for telling me, because actually I forgot to turn it off. The nice thing about the focus square is that when it's on, it does auto adjust a little bit. It doesn't do a lot because it's the DSLR. So it's not like a webcam or a camcorder that will actually autofocus the whole time. But yeah, feels like we are in the same space. That's what I was hoping, Barb. So thank you so much. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions about the yarns that we talked about today? Yeah, the square is totally weird. Thanks, Barb. I totally agree. Yeah, I just forgot to turn it off. if you guys ever see anything like that, don't hesitate to say something, because it's just because I forgot to turn it off. So, do you have any questions about all the yarns that we talked about today? Because we did talk about a lot of yarns. I had a lot of skeins to talk about today, which is really fun. I really like it when there's a lot to talk about. Okay, so really quickly, short, backward, continuous. So continuous backward draft is where I'm going to turn a little bit, so hopefully you guys can see me. So watch my hands. So short forward is where you're drafting like this. So you're holding your fiber and you're drafting forward, okay? Short backward is when you draft back, and you can smooth or pinch, it doesn't matter, but you draft back, come back to your fiber supply and reel it onto the wheel, okay? So short backward is draft back, smooth, and you're putting it onto your wheel. Oh, sorry, let me make sure my hands are up high. So draft back, smooth, and onto your wheel. And you can pinch and smooth, or you can pinch and let go. That part's up to you for a semi-worsted, so for a semi-worsted yarn or for a fully worsted yarn. So short forward is pinch, pull forward, pinch, pull forward. Short backward is pinch, pull back, smooth, reel on. So you've got 3 moving parts. Continuous backward is where you're draft back, smooth, smooth, reel on, okay? The reason why I'm starting to make the differentiation between short backward and continuous short backward and continuous backward is because it's too confusing when I just keep saying short backward, because short backward means draw back, smooth, put on, or draw back, pinch, let go. So it doesn't matter what this hand is doing, whether it's pinching or not pinching, smoothing or not smoothing. What you're doing with short backward is draw back, come back to your fiber supply, and then reeling onto the wheel. So it's this continuous dance, right? Like this. Whereas with continuous backward, you're drawing back, smooth, coming back to your fiber supply, back, onto your wheel. Long draw, if it's a supported long draw, is pinch, draw back, let the twist build up forward of your pinching hand, open up and allow that twist to run up, reel onto your wheel. And unsupported is where you're just drawing back and you're not using your other hand at all. So continuous backward draft is where you're draw back, and when you're doing short backward, draw back, onto the wheel, draw back, onto the wheel. Okay, so the reason why we need to start making a differentiation is because those are 2 different drafts. And I think when I say short backward, I'm not talking about this one traditionally, because my default is actually this one. So when I say short backward in the past, this is the draft that I meant, but that's not what it's actually called. So my bad. I really like that continuous addition. That's how I spin when I do backward, and I feel like I'm always fumbling to describe it. Totally, Kelly. That's how I've been feeling. I just feel like I can't explain it. So I think if we can make the differentiation that short backward and short, see, it's not short backward continuous. It's continuous backward. So because it's not really short. I guess you could put short in there if you wanted to. Continuous short backward, and then long draw. So whatever works for you, Jean, in terms of explaining them. The way I shorthand them is SFD for short forward draft, SFD. And then for short back, I do SBD, short backward draft. Yeah. And then continuous is continuous back draft. So CBD. That's how I write them down. Yeah. So CBD for continuous backward draft. Continuous backward draft. And then this was short forward draft. So SFD. Short forward draft. So And then it would be SBD for short backward draft. So yeah, that's a great question. So when you're doing continuous backwards, you're getting closer to a slightly more woolen draft. Because you're as you're working backward, you may or may not be smoothing, but the twist starts to act a little bit differently. And we were doing a whole bunch of samples and whatnot in the Q&A session yesterday, and we're going to be talking about some of this stuff more in the spinning to replace yarns, commercial yarns, in the July How I Spin content. Yeah. With a long silk, it's impossible to do short forward. It is awkward, isn't it? Yeah. What would you choose to make from silk? So that's actually why I've been doing all of this silk sampling, is because I've been doing lots of different stuff. So short backward, short forward, over the fold. I've been doing a whole bunch of different stuff and playing with different drafts. So yeah. Can you quickly describe long draw? Okay, so yeah, no problem, Dorothy. So for long draw, there's two different kinds. I'm not going to go into English versus American, but we'll just do supported versus unsupported. So if you start off with continuous back draw, and then you're going to pinch your fiber, keep your twist forward of your hand between you and the orifice. You're going to draw out your fiber. Once that twist is built up to what you want it to be, you unpinch your hands and the twist runs up. And then you reel it onto your wheel, and then you start to draw, and then you draw out again, pinch, draw out, unpinch, reel on. That's long draw. Sort of this dance. Pinch, draw out, let the twist run up, reel on. Unsupported is where you're doing this without actually pinching. So some people swear by unsupported, and some people like supported. I prefer supported personally because I feel like I can control the twist a little bit more. And when you're drawing out, I don't know if I can show you guys, but when you're drawing out, when you're holding onto your fiber back here and you're pinching up here, if you shift your hands and grab your singles while you're pinching, you can draft your singles apart to allow the yarn to even out and then let your twist run up. If you pull it from your fiber, you're just going to keep drafting more fibers and it'll break. So if you sort of turn your hand and pinch your singles while you're pinching and supporting, and just draw apart slightly and even it out, and then let the twist run up before it gets twist locked. Yeah. Over the fold, silk over the fold is great. I feel it gives me more control and it cuts the length in half. Absolutely, Becca. Yeah, spinning over the fold is a great. This one is spun over the fold. At the bottom, that's spun over the fold. Made a beautiful yarn. It's really easy to get the twist in there. And then these top two were spun continuous backward. They're not that different. So this one was spun quite late. I was getting tired. It's not as consistent. Yeah. So if there aren't any more questions, Muga is a sheep breed. Muga is a type of silk. It's a wild silk. It's a wild silk. It's not cultivated like Bombyx is cultivated or Erie is cultivated. I think Erie is cultivated. Erie's a type of wild silk as well. Bombyx is cultivated. Anyways, non-mulberry. It's a non-mulberry silk. So this is a wild silk. Yeah, and really, really fun to spin. Erie is considered a non-mulberry silk as well. So, oh, interesting, Alberta. So her hands are too rough for silk. It just catches and it isn't fun. Oh, bummer. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your enthusiasm about the podcast and about joining us every week. I really appreciate it. We've got a kind of a full week ahead of us. We've got spin group on Tuesday, and then we've got the wool stream on Thursday morning. It's on Thursday this week instead of Friday. We are trying to get away camping. I don't think it'll work out, but we're trying. And if not, we're going to go for day trips. So the wool stream will be at 7:15 Pacific Daylight Time on Thursday for those who are part of that. And I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. And thank you for your enthusiasm and for asking so many questions. It creates really great discussion. So have a wonderful Father's Day. Happy summer for those in the Northern Hemisphere. And I hope you're all staying safe and enjoying your time making and really being inspired. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you next weekend. Until next time, happy spinning, you guys. And of course, as always, happy knitting. Bye, guys.